Hello, everybody, and welcome to an introduction to gull identification with Justin Peter. Now, Justin Peter, many of you have probably met. You've probably benefited from his tutelage on all things nature. He's both a student and teacher of nature, and in his own words, he loves gulls. Justin is a past president of the Toronto Ornithological Club. He is the current director of Quest Nature Tours, who hopefully will be able to get tours up and running again as soon as this pesky pandemic leaves us behind. I've certainly benefited from Justin's tutelage and mentorship in many capacities over the years, going all the way back to our shared time at Algonquin Provincial Park, and you will certainly benefit from his wisdom on the finer points of gull identification. Take it away, Justin.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Ian, for that introduction. And I'm really pleased to be here today, and particularly as I get to talk about about gulls. And I was really pleased that Ontario Field Ornithologists, or as we call it, OFO, approached me to present this as part of the Birds on the Niagara International Winter Celebration, which is a fantastic thing to do while we're in the, sort of in the doldrums of winter, I guess, and what a great place to talk about. So gulls, I'm hoping that many of you are here because you really earnestly would like to learn more about gulls. I think gulls are certainly, in the context of Niagara, of the Niagara River, a big deal. Now, it might be that you're simply a tourist in Niagara, above the falls in such a scene as this, and you find a whole group of people with scopes peering down into the gorge below Horseshoe Falls, and you're wondering, what are all these people with scopes doing? Well, of course, if it's the winter, they're probably looking at gulls, and this is the scene from a former Ontario Field Ornithologist Gull weekend that is held usually every year at the beginning of December. So those tourists might wonder, well, gulls, why would you be looking at gulls? What could possibly interest you in gulls? And I know, in a way, gulls have sort of a varied reputation. They're not necessarily the most popular bird. They're certainly seen as obnoxious birds by many people. They're maybe seen as threatening. We're warned against feeding them. And, they do have a bit of maybe a bad reputation because they are kind of, in the words of some, they can be kind of scary because they can look kind of threatening. And if you've dared venture into gull identification at all, you might have maybe accompanied maybe a more experienced guller, as we call it, into the field, and you've come upon a scene like this where, oh, there's gulls, all right, there's lots of gulls, and, well, they're all just seagulls, aren't they? They all kind of look the same, and I see a little bit of variation in that group, some browner birds, some grayer birds, but where would you start with that? It can be intimidating, and certainly I acknowledge that. And then when you do get to look at a gull, someone might say, well, that's a herring gull. And you're looking at that thinking, that is okay, if you say so. And so there's a bit of a hurdle, I guess you would say. And because there's a lot going on when you're looking at a gull, and what perhaps if you're less experienced with gulls, there is a bit of there's a science to it and an art to gull identification. An experienced guller might look at a bird like this bird and they can say what it is, and they can give you all sorts of other information about it just by looking at that. And it might not be obvious to you right away. How did they figure that out? Where do they determine that that's a herring gull? So in the meantime, perhaps you've kind of dabbled, and perhaps you've backed away because you see a scene like this with distant gulls on a piece of ice floating down the Niagara River, such as these ones here, floating right in front of Navy Island above Niagara Falls. You might be, they're distant and they're kind of, I see some variation, and I don't know, I can't be bothered. Well, I understand if that is the case, if you felt that hesitation about gulls and you want to keep away from them because they're just they're sort of messy. Well, you know, I don't know if I'm hoping today I can offer you some inspiration. I mean, I like gulls beyond identification. For me, for me, identification is sort of the second part of it. But what really hooked me on gulls was just the way they are. And they do have, you know, they may be seen as scary birds, but they certainly have this determined look. And without anthropomorphizing too much, they're hardy birds and they're tough birds, and they seem to just know what they want, and I like that a lot. Like this is a California gull, which was intent on getting my onion rings. I was just focused and knew exactly what it wanted. And there's something neat about that. And gulls are certainly persistent, and they don't give up easily as well, such as this glaucous-winged gull in Vancouver, British Columbia. I love photographing gulls and wherever I can, and I just couldn't help but admire this one who was going to hold that starfish in its mouth until it finally went down. It would not give up. I just admire gulls for that. And you know, if you take the time to look at gulls, to like really look at gulls, and without any sort of intent other than just being around them and taking the time to absorb them, they are very attractive birds. Really beautiful birds. This is a lesser blackback gull. Just striking. Look at the legs and the bill and the eye and the ring around the eye. Just everything about it is really, really attractive. And I'd like to say, if you allow it to be so. And you know, I get to travel around the world most of the time, and I love to just look at all the different gulls because there's something really different and alluring about them, whether it's just their head, their bills, their eyes, their plumage. And you know what? Some of them, you know, they can be scary, but they can be really attractive and frightening at the same time. And they can offer you just a lot of entertainment, I would say. So what I would say about this, if you're starting in gull identification, or maybe just wanted to refresh, you know, gulls are interesting to look at. And what I hope through this presentation is to maybe give you some rudiments, some ways to start looking at gulls. So you can just look at gulls on your own. You're not under any particular pressure. And, you know, I do come back to the point that if you just take a little bit of time, you'll find gulls are just really interesting birds to look at. If you just stop and look, there's something that just draws you in. So if you'll allow me to, or if you'll just stick with me, and I hope that you'll find something that you can hold on to. Now, to be very honest, I mean, when I started with gulls, I looked at gulls. I mean, I've been birding since I was 5. I had a field guide, was looking at gulls in the field guide, and they're very alluring to look at because they're subtly different from each other. But I have to say that I honestly didn't have a system, let's say, for how do I identify this gull versus that gull? How do I distinguish one species from another? I didn't really have a way of thinking about it. I guess I just, being a very visual person, very interested in detail, I just sort of had a hunch or a feeling for how to distinguish gulls. But in my 20s, I found a book which I thought was a fantastic book, and I'm going to show you this book because I think maybe if you don't have this book, you'll consider purchasing it. It's out of print. It's by Bill Thompson III, the late Bill Thompson III, fantastic birder. And I have to say, when I read this book, I mean, I was interested in gulls. I didn't know what I knew about gulls already in terms of identification. When I read this book, the sections on gulls, because there's a couple of sections on gulls, it really just made some things very, very clear to me. And, you know, I didn't invent these things, but I'm going to share them with you. And I encourage you to get this book to read them in more detail. But when it comes to gull identification, yes, there are challenges. But if you can accept a few simple premises, then you've sort of surpassed a major hurdle. And so I'm going to share some of these findings from this book. And really a few things to accept. They're very easy to read. They look very simple, but they're really important. And that is, number 1, gulls are highly variable. Number 2, gulls vary with age, sometimes tremendously. And number 3, rare gulls are rare. And I'm going to walk through each of these with you using examples from mainly my own photography, but just to give you a sense of what these mean and why they're important to think about. Number 1, gulls are highly variable. Well, what does that mean? Well, if we look at one species of gull, if you look at all the birds, all the individuals of that species, there's a lot of differences from one bird to the next, one individual to the next, if you're really looking at them closely. Now that might throw you off, but the point is you just have to accept it. Now I'll show you some examples here. And these are Iceland gulls. Now I photographed these in St. John's, Newfoundland, the best place in the world to see Iceland gulls in the winter easily. And it happens to be a highly variable species. It is very highly variable. But the thing is, all the birds on this wall here by the harbor of St. John's they're all the same species. But even just first glance, you can see that this bird here, now with your eye, look at the bird in front of it, closer to you, closer to the screen. You can already see it's different. You know, this one here sort of streaks on its head, very fine few streaks on the breast. This one here in front of it has some streaks there, but a lot more gray in the ground color of the head and a lot more smudgy on the breast. They're the same species. So from one bird sitting beside another bird, same species, there can be variation. That's just the way it is. There's variation in the seasons. This gull here, which is the ring-billed gull, this is your classic McDonald's parking lot gull that comes to grab leftover fries that are on the ground. The ring-billed gull, very common species in the Niagara Gorge. It is the main species you'll see in the summertime. They're there in maybe lesser numbers in the winter, but they're there. This is what it would look like in the wintertime. Look at the head. The head has a lot of gray, sort of smudgy streaks on it. Smearings. Same bird, a couple of months later in March, they'll be molting their head feathers, and by March, the same bird could look like this. You'll see a couple of little gray spots there on the head still, but it's molted and it looks different. Also, the plumage, the head plumage may be different in the terms of time of year. The body feathers can show differences in wear depending on the time of year. Feathers wear out. So this is a California gull photographed in the month of June when the feathers are quite worn out already on the top. Look at this bird. It looks ragged. Look at the wingtips. It should have white dots at the wingtips. Those have almost worn off by this time of year. If I fast forward to the month of August, the same bird might look like this. It's molted, it's replaced feathers, and look how fresh and clean the mantle, which is the upper parts, the grayer upper parts of the bird look. And look at the wingtips, you have nice big white dots on them. These are new feathers. So the bird can look different from one time of the year to the next. And you can have variation even within one bird. These are two lesser black-backed gulls that I photographed in Senegal on the west coast of Africa in the winter. This was November 2018. Look at the bird. They're both the same species. They look different. One has more streaking on the head, one has less. So there's some variation right there. Look at the bird on the right side and look at its legs. This gull generally has yellow legs, but as an adult bird, but look, this bird seems to have two different colored legs. So there's variation, there can be variation even like that. So just one thing to accept, gulls are highly variable. And not only that, another thing is gulls vary with age, sometimes tremendously, number 2 right here. So it can be that you're in one spot and you see different individuals and they look very different. And you might at first glance think that they're just different species, but you'll see in terms of behavior, size, and other things that, oh no, they're very much the same species. They just look different because their ages are different. And here, for example, these are ring-billed gulls, and the bird on the right looks like the ones I've already showed you, an adult bird, and has just fed its own young, its own recently fledged baby on the left, something it looks like, I'm not sure what it's being fed, maybe a piece of bread, but these two birds look very different. If I had just seen them sitting side by side, I would think, hey, they're different species, but in this case, clearly I see one feeding the other. I can infer that they're the same species, and they are. So that's a reality, and that's something we can overcome though, even though it may put you off a little bit. And the number 3 rule to accept, rare gulls are rare. Seems kind of obvious, rare gulls are rare, that we have to emphasize that. But what that means is that in any place where you are, You can see a number of different gulls in the Niagara, along the Niagara River, in the Niagara River IBA, or important bird area. You can have a whole whack of gulls, a large variety of gulls, which is what makes it a great gull watching location. In the Niagara, you can certainly see all of these species. I think they've all been seen previously. That looks like a lot, and when you think that gulls kind of overall, a lot of them kind of look the same, that might be intimidating. And I'm sure that Tom Kerr from the Buffalo Audubon Society will be talking to you about many more of these species here than I will be, and talking about each of them more in depth. I'm not going to talk about all of them in depth, since we're just looking at gull identification, getting used to them. What you can be assured of is that, for the most part, if you're going along the Niagara River, the most common ones you're going to see, are these 4 birds right here in yellow. Number 1, 2, 3, 4. Herring gull, ring-billed gull, Bonaparte's gull, and great black-backed gull. Those are 4 species I would say you're probably, during the wintertime, you will see them if you're just looking semi-seriously, semi-casually for them, you should see them. The rest of the species, I have them sort of roughly in order of increasing rarity. Number 5, number 6, you'll see. Number 7 with special effort. The other ones, 8 and onwards, if the bird is there, if there's an individual that's there and you're really looking, you might find it. But the other ones really fall off in terms of being common. So when you're along the Niagara River, as I was, in this case here, I was birding with Marcy Jacqueline, and I took this photo because I loved it, and because it illustrated the point that there's a small number of gulls, really, that comprise the bulk of individuals that you're going to see. And we're going to come back to this photo later, but there aren't that many gull species in this photo. And I don't think I mentioned there will be a quiz later, but we'll talk more about later. So we can accept these. If we can accept these things, that's just reality. That's just the reality of it. It'll just make things so much easier for you. Well, there's there's a way to assist you in moving forward from those truths, because there are really 2 important shortcuts that you could take. And I'm going to show you another book later, but the shortcuts are really drawn from these 2 sources. So shortcut number 1, there are 3 sizes of gull: large, medium, and small. Sounds simple, but if we just simply decide which gulls go in which category, that'll simplify it even further. So large gulls, remember those 4 gulls that I said are the ones that you expect, sort of the most common ones along the Niagara River. Large herring gull and great black-backed gull. Now, great black-backed gull is larger than herring gull yet, but they're about the same, what we call size class. Number 2 is the medium-sized gull. The prototype is the ring-billed gull. And number 3 is the Bonaparte's gull. And we're going to look at all of these in more detail later. So there are 3 sizes of gull. Let me look at examples of each of them, just so you can visualize them. This is the prototype large gull, the herring gull. This is an adult. And as an adult, gray on the top, black primary tips, which are the long feathers of the wing with white dots on the tips, apical spots. Has a clear eye, it has an orangey yellow orbital ring, skin around the eye, yellow bill, that red spot on the bottom, pink legs. That's a typical herring gull. Remember there is variation. This one's in the winter, so it has gray on the head. In the summer, it would basically have a white head. Large gull. Now, we're going to show you an example of a medium-sized gull. The most common one you can expect is the ring-billed gull, which is your McDonald's parking lot gull. This is an adult. Is a yellow bill with a black ring near the tip, a complete black ring. It doesn't have that red dot. Yellow legs as an adult. The color of the legs intensifies in the breeding season, or with the advent of the breeding season. It has sort of a carmine, which is like a red eye ring, and clear eye, attractive bird. And your prototype small gull is this one here, the Bonaparte's gull, which can be found throughout the winter along the Niagara River. Depending on how far we are in the winter, the numbers will drop over the winter. Certainly if you go in December, November, December, there should be plenty of them. There might be still some kicking around. And this is one that in the summer, as an adult, it has, in fact, a black head. But you rarely see those in Niagara because most of them you're seeing are in the wintertime, so in the off season. So in the non-breeding season, it has a black dot behind the eye. And it has a very distinctive wing pattern. There are other species that can share this wing pattern, be forewarned, but basically gray on top with a white forewing, sort of white leading edge, and then the black tips along the outer wing tips there. So very attractive, small gull. So you might think, now, okay, I've said that there are the three sizes of gull. How would you tell just looking at one bird? Because size is relative, and sometimes if you see just one bird, it might be hard to judge. The benefit of gulls in gull watching is that gulls often hang out together, and you can have these mixed species groups together. So for example, here I have two species. One of them is a herring gull, and the others are ring-billed gulls. And you can see now that the herring gull is noticeably bigger than the ring-billed gulls. And you know what? There's variation even within each species, as I said. So some herring gulls, female gulls, can tend to be smaller. They tend to be smaller. Male gulls tend to be larger. So they can sometimes almost approach overlap in size, or it can seem like there's less of a difference. But usually if you're looking, you can see if you look intently. So here I can see fairly easily that there's two species of gull. Well, I'm telling you that anyway, so just please believe me on that. So just watch and use the context to see that. And, you know, in the case of the Bonaparte's gull, as I said, it's a small gull. When you see it flying, it's part of the group of gulls that are sometimes called tern-like gulls because they have a more of a tern-like flight. It's a lighter flight. They are a small bird. But if I see one next to a mallard or mallards here on this dock, I can see, okay, it's quite a bit smaller than mallard, so it makes sense that it's called a small gull. So there's context there that helps you situate your gull in terms of size if you can't identify the species right away. Just watch. That's the important thing. Just watch. Now, I said there was another guide that I'm drawing on here, which is this book, which is out of print. It's from the late 1980s, as I recall, The Complete Birder, Jack Connor. It's another one of those books which I found as an adult. Actually, it was a friend of mine who gave it to me. And it's a great book because it gets you thinking about things in a different way. That's how I can sum it up. But it has a great section on gulls. And, you know, one of the things you draw from that book is that it's one of those shortcuts. Gulls start out brown and turn gray or black and white. Gulls start out brown and turn gray or black and white. What does that mean? Well, as an adult, this is an adult herring gull, and it's on Lake Erie. And it's, you know, the classic gull look. It's a white bird, basically, with a gray mantle, gray upper parts. And that's what the adult bird looks like. It has red on the tip of on the base, underneath the bill near the tip. That rests by it. This one has a little bit of black near it as well. But that's the adult bird. But a young bird starts out, a bird in its first year of life looks quite a bit different. Looks like this. It's basically a brown bird. Overall, it just looks like a brown bird, not gray and white. You know, if you want to have fun, I'll let you absorb this meme I found off the internet. Some of the advanced birders might identify with this. And so while that sounds sort of vague when I say gulls start out brown and then they turn white and gray or white and black. Some gulls have almost black or blackish on the upper parts, very dark as adults. So this plate here comes from this book, The Complete Birder. And basically what it's showing you is the transition of a herring gull from its sort of first plumage, from its first plumage and appearance when it fledges. So we're starting at top left and going to the right and down. So left to right, top to bottom. And so the bird, when a herring gull leaves the nest, it looks sort of like the bird at upper left, remembering there's a lot of variation. And as it ages, first of all, its feathers will wear, feathers will fade from the ultraviolet, but it'll also be molting certain feathers out, and they'll become less brown. The newer feathers will have less brown. They'll trend towards white and gray on a herring gull. And through a number of molts, where the bird will replace feathers over about basically 4 years, it will ultimately achieve the adult breeding appearance at the bottom right here. And so you'll see differences in the tail. Look at the tail. The tail has a dark band across it here, and it's going to keep those same tail feathers for about a year. And the tail band, now it'll become faded. The dark will become faded, but then it'll molt those in the summer. In its first summer, it'll get a new tail. The tail overall will have still a pretty thick band on it, usually brown, and it'll carry those tail feathers. It'll molt again around here. By the time of its third winter, it'll have more of a white tail with a reduced band in the tail, which will trend towards black. We'll see examples of this with color photos. So things change as feathers are molted, and on the body, really the long feathers of the wing and the tail feathers are generally replaced once a year on most species. The body feathers can be replaced once or twice a year, depending on the body part. So there can be multiple things changing, but the trend is the same in these gulls. Just to show you an example, this is a gull that you would not expect regularly in Niagara, but it might be seen. This is a Franklin's gull. This is a bird in its first winter, and it has already changed from what it looked like when it left the nest maybe 4 months earlier. This was photographed in November. This was in the Galapagos, in fact. By this point, the bird had browner feathers up here, but those have already been replaced by these gray feathers. We can see on the wing here, and you look at it, and you'll see these wing feathers look tattered. And they look tattered because they're worn. And if I can see the tail here, the tail looks sort of white, but it has this broad, deep brownish band in it here. And so the bird has fresher, newer feathers here, which are grayer. These are worn brownish feathers. If I follow the bird 3 months later in February, you can photograph, this is a bird I photographed in February. It could have been the same bird. It has gray up here, and it's replacing those worn feathers on the wing down here with new gray feathers. And it's by the spring, in let's say May, the same bird might look like this. It might have lost all those brown feathers and look much more like an adult at this point. So Franklin's gull has a very particular molt strategy compared to other gulls, but that's basically what we're seeing: brown to gray and white. And I mean, you can see, depending on the time of year, you can actually watch molt happening on an individual bird. This is a ring-billed gull photographed in Toronto on Lake Ontario by Natalie Robertson, fantastic photographer. And it's basically in its first year, and it's transitioning to its second year. And you can see that because it has a lot of brown in the wings, and the brown on the back of the wing here would have been continuous all across, but you see it's been interrupted here by these gray feathers with whitish tips, because those are new wing feathers coming in. And it has, by this point, gray in the back and some gray coming in the fore of the wing here. And so it's changing. And other things change on a gull with age. Generally, generally bird gulls, many of the larger gulls, have an all dark bill when they leave the nest, when they fledge. And at varying speeds, the bill can become paler from the base towards the tip. And at a certain point, it starts becoming pale from the tip towards the base. This is a glaucous-winged gull I photographed in Vancouver in British Columbia on the coast. It would be very, very rare in the Niagara, but the principle applies that this bird here is going into its second year. This is a bird that's just a bit over a year old. It would have had an all-dark bill. For a while, the bill has become paler from the base, and now I know it's going to second year for a large. This is a large gull because that's a pale tip here. You see that. So eye color changes with age in many species, and so there's things that are always changing. The leg color may also change in gulls. Some gulls will have pink legs from fledgling through to an adult. Some will start off pink and they become yellow with age. So things change. Now the thing is, I talked about these changes and I talked about size, and they seem to be two different things, but important thing is that the speed at which gulls achieve adult plumage is generally basically based on the size of the gull. So when I talk about large gulls like herring gull, great black-backed gull, generally takes 4 years for them to go from the youngest plumage to attain the adult appearance. Medium gulls like the ring-billed gull take 3 years, small gulls take 2 years. So an example here of, now that sounds sort of vague. Once again, I'll show you some examples here. Here next is a photograph, a fantastic photograph taken by Ryan Griffiths, who is a Niagara area birder and gull aficionado. He loves gulls, and I can tell it because he's always photographing gulls and taking great pics of them. This is a once-in-a-lifetime photograph that Ryan took looking down into the Niagara Gorge when he captured 4 herring gulls, 4 different ages in one shot, 4 different plumages, I should say. So the bird at the bottom right is the youngest one, what we would call a first-year bird in its first year of life, approximately. The second-year bird, if you're looking for it, it's the one that looks most like the first-year bird, and that would be the top bird here. It has some gray coming in on the back here as it's been molting. It has quite a bit of dark in the tail, but you see there's a white ground color to it. There's white around it. And the dark color in the tail is blacker, it's less brown. And it has a very dark bill, but some pink at the base, whereas that first-year bird has an all dark bill at this point in the season. And then there's the third-year bird, which is this bird here at left. And then the adult bird here at top right. The adult bird, clear white tail, basically gray across the top here with black. And basically it's a white and gray bird. This third-year bird, to just back up for a second, if I were to say, what does it look most like? It looks most like an adult. So in a large gull, you have that first-year bird. The second-year bird looks mostly like a first-year bird, but a bit like an adult. The third-year bird looks mostly like an adult, but a bit like the first year, because it has a bit of brown still here in the wing. You see that compared to the adult. And it has basically a white tail, but it has some smudges of black in them. And once it molts in the next summer, molts these out, it should have a pure white tail. And the adult, the adult, in fact, the age, we can't really tell what the age is, because once it reaches 4 years from into its subsequent molts, we assume that the gull will look pretty much the same. So if it's 10-year-old, this could be a 10-year-old bird, it could be a 4-year-old bird, or a 6 or 10. Gulls can live 20 plus if they're a strong bird. So, and if they're lucky. So that's what we would call basically an adult bird, but we don't know the age, in fact. So always keep in mind there's a lot of variation. I'll show you sort of more closely that herring gull is a 4-year gull. This is the herring gull in the first year. Basically a brown bird, brown wingtips, a lot of brown in the tail. This has a bit of gray here in the top. Darkish eye, mostly dark bill, bit of pale here, but mostly dark, pink legs. And that could be the same bird in flight, very brown bird. Herring gulls are highly variable as a first-year bird. Some of them are quite white, some of them are quite brown. But I can tell this is a herring gull, and I know this because I saw this in the breeding area where they were fledgling recently. All dark bill, dark eye look, basically brown. Notice these little windows here, these little pale areas in the inner primaries. In the second year, this is what a bird could look like. A lot of brown on it, I can see there's a dark tail here, some gray on the top here. This one has mostly dark bill. The eye, I can't quite tell, but if I go back to this bird, which you've already seen, this is also a second-year bird. A lot of pale at the base of the bill, a little bit of a pale tip here, a little bit of gray coming in here, and an eye that's not dark, it's starting to become light. And in the third year, the eye becomes lighter, it has more pale on the bill as that black area kind of constricts, and more gray, not only on the upper part in the scapulars here on the back, but really extending down onto the wing coverts. In flight, the bird might look like this. We've already seen an example of that. Mostly gray on the top, but these smudges of black and brown kind of in the gray area. More extensive black on the wingtips. Pale eye, mostly yellow bill, but doesn't have that red spot. Overhead, the bird might look like this. Spectacular, I think. Look at that tail, mostly white with a sort of a relic black band, broken black band there, pale eye, but it doesn't have the red spot in the bill. And an adult looks like this, red spot, basically all nice and gray on the top. So that's a herring gull. And just a quick look at that fantastic photo by Ryan again. In terms of medium gulls, of course, the prototype is the ring-billed gull. And so this is the adult. We've already seen that. It just looks like an adult, looks nice, clean cut, no traces of brown in the wings. It's just nice and gray. There's nice black primary tips on the wings with nice thick white apical spots on each of those feathers. Very nice clear eye, yellow legs, yellow bill, a nice clear cut black ring on the tip. If I go to a first-year bird, let's say in its first fall, first winter, it might look like this. Look at the leg color difference. They're pink. The wingtips are dark brown, they're not black. It has a dark eye. It has a sort of a bicolored bill, pink at the base and black at the tip, and a lot of brown. You can almost feel like there's a lot of white below in the ground color of that bird, but there's a lot of brown on the tips for sure, a lot of brown throughout the upper parts on the wings. So very brown looking bird overall. And you know, that changes fairly quickly over the winter. So this is a bird in the fall. See how much brown there is in the wing. This one here has less brown on top. It's somewhat worn here in these gray feathers. Still quite a bit of brown here. And it's replaced some feathers in this area. The wingtips are the same wingtip still, but you see here compared to an adult in the background. So you can see same size, maybe the same species, yes. In flight, if that bird went overhead, the bird at bottom is the first-year bird. It has a fairly broad, dark brown tail band here, and a bit interrupted here at the center, but you basically see a nice brown band overall, and you see that the wingtips are really brown. There's brown here. There's a lot of brown in the wing pits. We don't call them armpits, we call them wing pits because birds don't have arms, and a lot of brown throughout the body. And I feel like it has a dark eye. It's hard to see from this angle, but there's a lot of dark on the bill. Now, second-year bird is the funnest one. Now, with gulls in general, the youngest gulls, if you're at any site, the most abundant age classes we'll have in terms of the plumage appearance would be the youngest ones, because there's a lot of them that have been hatched, and the adults, because once you reach adulthood, yeah, you stand a better chance of surviving even longer. In the ring-billed gull, the second-year cohort, let's say, in terms of age, is the least abundant because a lot of the first-year birds die off out of lack of inexperience, predation, starvation, whatever it might be. So here at left, you have a second-year ring-billed gull. Now look at the one to the right. That's an adult. The one on the left has molted out a lot of the brown feathers, the browner feathers of the first-year bird. It has more of a yellow bill, but not a really yellow bill, but it's a yellow bill nonetheless. And the black has become narrower on the bill. You have a definite yellow tip on the bill, but the black band, the black ring, is still thicker than on the adult. In the winter, the adult ring-billed has some brown flecking in the head. This one has more of that and more smudging, a little bit of brown coming down the flanks here on the front. And the gray, just look at the gray on the wings. You see that there's some still brownish in it here. And the wingtips, see on the adult here, nice black with white apical spots. Well, this one, it might have tiny bits of white at the tips, but they're basically dark, usually. And a different angle, a similar bird would be this one here. And this one here, you can see this has a darker eye than the adult. If you come back to this one still has quite a dark eye and paler tip, mostly gray, but some definite black and brown smudging on the wings. And look at the tail is white, but it has a bit of broken black banding, and you'll see that as the bird flies overhead here. So more extensive black on the wingtips, white tail with a broken black band here. This is highly variable. Some birds will have almost none of that black. But as you watch them, you'll see that second year bird here, great example, broken tail band, but black. And still some dark areas under the wings here, and lack of white tips on the feathers here. So I'll walk you through some here and see if you can guess before I tell you, or you can identify. We never guess, we identify. Based on this one, based on the appearance of this one, would you say this is first year, second year, or an adult in terms of appearance? I would say clear eye, yellow legs, definitely like real yellow legs. I see white tips on those feathers, on the primary feathers on the wings, nice clean gray on the wing itself, on the mantle, the upper parts here. Mostly white here. That's an adult. This one here. Eye isn't dark, but it's not pale, clear. The bill has a dark ring to it, a ring on it, but it's fairly thick. Sort of a broken black tail band. That's a second year bird. First year bird. Later in the season, when it's become more white and bleached, faded. Second year. A lot of brown in the wing pits, almost said armpits. And a bicolored bill, dark eye. That's a first year. So it looks mostly adult, but I see a lot of extensive black here where there shouldn't be black on an adult. The eye looks sort of darkish. The ring on the bill is quite thick. This is a second year bird. First year. Second year. First year. And you know what? There's always going to be exceptions. As I said, things change, bill colors change, eye color changes, leg color changes. But there are some gulls that as adults have dark eyes. So this here, just as an example, is a California gull. It's a rare species in Niagara. This is in the summertime. This bird happens to be wet, so it looks sort of messy, but it has a dark eye as an adult. There was a ring-billed gull to the left of it. You can notice the difference of the eye color and a bit in the size and a bit in the intensity of the leg color as well. So there's always exceptions. You should look at all gulls closely. And in this group of gulls, which is mostly ring-billed gulls, and I see certainly a herring gull there. Look at the gull in the front. Notice how the wingtips aren't black with white fat tips on them. They're dark gray. And this is an Iceland gull. And Iceland gull is a highly variable species, but it may not have, it could have black wingtips, but if it's, this is an adult bird. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that's a characteristic of a species. Some birds as an adult, like this glaucous gull, which can be seen. This one's enjoying Philadelphia cream cheese at a dump. White wingtips, completely white wingtips. It looks like a herring gull very much in its coloration otherwise, except the gray is paler on the back, but white wingtips. So there's exceptions. And some adults have black tails as adults. Let's talk about, exceptions. This is a black-tailed gull, which has been seen in Ontario. The first one was in 2009, found by Brandon Holden. And this is a cover from Ontario Birds, our journal of the Ontario Field Ornithologists. So look at that tail. That's normal. That's an adult bird. And that's how it is as an adult. So we'll look quickly at the small gulls here, because we'd like to get to our quiz. And small gulls appropriately take 2 years to reach that adult appearance. So the prototype small gull, and certainly by far the most common in the Niagara area, is the Bonaparte's gull. And as I said, they have that very nice wing pattern with the white leading edge here, the black trailing edge. here, and these I think they look like they're all adults, and this is an adult looking more closely at one perch. You know, gray, same principle applies, mainly gray on the top here, and they happen to have a very dark bill even as an adult, so that's a bit of a difference with them, and also darkish eye as an adult. The legs can be sort of pink as an adult, they could be more orangey, but notice sort of the, you know, clear tail here, nice white body. And here's another example of one here in flight. And if you're looking for them, you'll find them in the Niagara. And a first-year bird would look like this. It has look at this one, it has a limited black. This adult has limited black on the wingtips and just gray here onwards. This one has black all along the trailing edge of the wing. And look, a very obvious black band here on the tail. So otherwise gray back here, but a lot of brown here in the front of the wing. So, and it's always good to look, and I say, well, you know, look at every gull, because if you make a habit of looking at every one, then you'll start to notice when there is a difference. If you get to know the Bonaparte's gull well, just look at it, how it is. Look at that nice black trailing edge on the whole wing, and very nice thick black trailing edge. And if you look at this gull here, it's a small gull, which means it's a 2-year gull. But it looks different because it doesn't have a complete black trailing edge on it. And it has much more dark in the front part of the wing here. And this is a little gull, and it's the smallest gull in the world, and it can be seen along the Niagara. And it's a first-year little gull. And just a point about the gulls, the ages, when I talked about, you know, the number of years it takes for them to reach adult appearance. There's, you know, the small gulls are what we call a, you know, 2-year gull. The medium gulls are 3-year gulls. Those, when we talk about 3-year gulls, 4-year gulls, though that terminology will be used in some of the field guides, like the National Geographic Field Guide. If you look at it and you open it up to herring gull, it'll say 4-year gull. So right away, it makes me think that's a large gull, and I should expect 4 different, you know, appearances at any one time. So I've tried to share with you sort of a digest of the things you could think about, really to encourage you to look more closely. And I can tell you that looking more closely is what will bring you to new discoveries. I'll just give you the story of this gentleman here who's hidden behind his coat right above Niagara Falls here, teasing a ring-billed gull. His name is Jamie Spence, and Jamie has been spending, I know Jamie for a few years, he's been spending a lot of time looking at gulls, just looking at all the gulls you can see, you know, the McDonald's parking lot, wherever. And, you know, a lot of the gulls you're going to see commonly in urban areas are ring-billed gulls. And he spent so much time looking at gulls. In this past winter, I think it was at the end of November, Jamie was looking down into the Niagara Gorge. I think he was with Marcy Jacqueline, and he saw a gull that was a similar size to a ring-billed gull, but it was different. It was just different. And it was this bird here. And it's not obvious right here necessarily, but in watching it with ring-billed gulls, the gray on the back looked a little bit darker, and the head and the bill looked kind of shorter and squatter, rounder. It just had a cuter appearance. And he was fairly convinced, and here you have it, the top bird here is that bird next to a ring-billed gull. That bird is a mew gull. Basically, it's a 3-year gull, like the ring-billed gull, you know, the medium-sized gull. But just from watching intently, there was something about it. And later, this bird, so he identified it there later, we assume the same bird was seen to the west near Brantford, Ontario. And this is a photo by Andrew McTavish, and it's this bird here, the mew gull. As an adult, it has a dusky eye, but shorter bill, yellow bill, no ring or anything, but a really nice, cute, round pigeon-type head. And it's because Jamie was just looking and stopping and looking and taking the time to look at gulls. So and then you get beautiful results like this. So really, it's just a matter of looking, taking the time, going at your own pace, and just studying them, watching them. So I hope this has served as a good primer for you to just look at gulls and stop and look at gulls. I thought we'd have a little bit of fun with a quick and painless quiz here. And I have basically 8 questions. And it's not a super hard quiz. Mainly, I'm going to ask you about ages, but I'm going to help you by telling you, I'm going to show you these gulls. For the most part, I'm going to tell you what, what size of gull it is, so you can get an idea of it, because it's not really fair if you don't have the full context of that bird without seeing it in relation to other birds to just expect you to know necessarily what it is right away. But I will give you the sizes, and you can certainly age the gulls. You can say if it's an adult or first year, second year, third year. And if you get the species, that's great. That's a bonus point for you. So, are you ready? Get your writing implement out and a piece of paper, and let's go with question 1. This is a large gull, so it's a 4-year gull. It takes basically 4 years to reach the adult appearance. And this one it was photographed in the winter, obviously. And just have a look at it, at the gray, the extent of gray. Is there any sort of brownish in it, or does it look nice, basically gray? Is it, what about the eye? What about the bill? Remembering that many gulls get brown or grayish streaking to smudging in the head in the winter. That's perfectly expected. What is the age of this bird here? And if you recognize the species based on other characteristics, like the leg color and the eye color, the eye ring, in this case it's sort of like a yellowy orange or orange yellow. It's a nice red spot on the top, the tip of the bill there. What would the species be? Ready? Number 2. This is a medium-sized gull. It was photographed in November. And remembering that there's always variability, have a good look at it. It's a medium-sized gull. It's a common species, I'll give you that much. Look at the eye color, look at the amount of gray in the wings. Is there where is the black? Is the black limited to the wingtips, or is it maybe somewhat more extensive? It's hard to see the tail on this bird, so that's not a very helpful point, but you can see eye color, the amount of black in the bill as well, the color of the bill. We can't quite see the legs very well here. Sometimes you can't, age a gull, it's not important. Sometimes you can't identify it either, that's fine. But what is the age? And if you know the species, what is it? Here's the next one. Haha, different gull. Look at that, that very dark mantle, which is quite normal for it. This is a large gull, so it's a 4-year gull. It takes 4 years to reach adulthood. So, what is the age of this gull? Would you call it first year, second year, third year, or an adult? I see, a lot of nice white body, nice white tail. Looking at the wing tips and everything. Yeah, okay. If you know the age, that's great. And species, it's a large gull. And I see that the legs are, I'll tell you that they're pink. It's sort of hard to see, but they are pink legs. Species as a bonus. Number 4, this is a small gull in the winter time. What would you, how would you age it? Of course, with the small gulls, which are the 2-year gulls. It takes 2 years to reach the adult appearance generally. So is it a first year or is it an adult? And what's the species? Number 5. This one looks a little bit funny because its wingtips on the left wing have been sort of shredded, but remarkably, this bird could fly, and it was really good at catching fish too. Perhaps because of its impediment, I feel. So it's a medium-sized gull, which means it's a 3-year gull. I see a lot of brown on the body, a lot of brown in the wing pits, a lot of brown in the tail, along the trailing edge of the wing. See a darkish eye, I think, bicolored bill. What is the age? What is the species? Number 6. This is a large gull, so it's a 4-year gull. When you're looking at 4-year gulls, remember you have like first year, second year, third year, fourth year, or adult, I should say, not fourth year. Does it look, is it adult or very much like an adult, or is it first year, or if it were a second year, it would look more like a first year. So where does this fit? Is it mostly gray on the top? I see black in the tail. I see a pale eye. I see limited black to the wing, to the bill tip. Bit of black smudging in the wings. So age, easy, I think. Species, which one do you think it is? Okay, number 7. Almost there, folks. Number 7, we have one species of bird here. I'll tell you that. There's 2 birds here. I'd like to know the age of the bird in the foreground. This is a medium-sized gull, so that means it's a 3-year gull. So what is the age of the foreground bird? And for bonus, what is the age of the bird in the background? And what is the species? I see legs that are yellow, but not like intensely yellow. I see wingtips that are like slaty, like almost black, but they're not brown, but they're not quite black. It's a little bit of dark in the tail. Look at the tail here, just a little bit of a trace of a broken tail band here. Darkish looking eye. Bill is yellow, but not so yellow. All right, and number 8, I've shown you this photo before, taken right along the Niagara River. How many species are in this photo? Now that could be hard, and we will review it, but I'll tell you, hint, there aren't that many species in this photo. And you know what, even if you don't get this right, I think you'll learn something when we review the questions in a moment. So just have a look at it. What we're looking for, look at the sizes of the birds. Try to look at the birds that look like adults, see how much variation you have in the birds that like clearly are adults. And then look at the other birds that aren't adults and sort of see what are they closest to in terms of their size. Is that the case? Can they be matched to any of the adults? And I think you'll have your answer in terms of the number of species here. Leg color in the adults is important. The mantle color on the top, the darkness of the top in the adults can also be important, so look at that. All right, I hope you're ready to review the answers. And number 1, did you get it? Number 1 here is an adult. It's a large gull, I said. It's an adult herring gull. Nice clean gray across the mantle here. Clear eye, orange yellow eye ring. This is a bird in winter, so it has a darkish head, which is highly variable in herring gulls in the winter. Some are quite pale, some are very dark hooded, as we say. And but nice clear eye, yellow bill, red dot, pink legs, nice clean, crisp adult herring gull. Number 2, ready? You would be correct if you said that this was a 2nd-year ring-billed gull. It's very much like an adult, but still darkish eye, more extensive black in areas of the wing that shouldn't be black in an adult bird. Darkish eye, thick black ring on the bill. Number 3, it's an adult great black-backed gull. Now, if you didn't get great black-backed gull, that's fine, but I think you can see, nice clean white body, white tail. On a sub-adult, a great black-backed gull that is not an adult, it might be a 3rd-year bird, would have some brownish or paler areas in the wing here on the mantle. That might give it away, and it might have a bit of black here in the tail as well. So nice adult great black-backed gull, the largest gull in the world, and you should see these if you're looking for them along the Niagara River in the winter. Number 4, an adult Bonaparte's gull, prototype small gull that you can expect in the area. Number 5, this is a 1st-year ring-billed gull. Easy peasy. Number 6, it's a 3rd-year herring gull. I said it was a large gull, 4-year gull. And this looks more like an adult. It's clearly not adult because it doesn't have clear gray across the top. It obviously has black in the tail. An adult should have, white tail. Generally expect an adult would also have the red spot on the bottom of the bill and shouldn't have that extensive black on the top of the bill. So it would have more expensive white tips on the feathers, certainly during the winter. So this is the third-year herring gull. Number 7, this is a second-year ring-billed gull in the foreground. The one in the back is an adult. And number 8, you ready? How many gull species are in this photo? There are 3 gull species. There are the great black-backed gull, which is the largest gull here, the herring gull, which is the most abundant here, and the lesser black-backed gull, which is the small one here. The smaller one here, not quite black like the great black-backed gull. It's a dark gray, yellow legs, shorter looking bird. Now in the great black-backed gulls, these are all of the great black-backed gulls we have here. You can see a couple of adults. This one here looks like a third-year bird. It looks like an adult, but it has more black in the wing, in the bill tip, not red. And it looks like a second-year bird. And I think this is also a second-year bird here. Herring gulls, we'll do a quick review. There's a number of them of different ages. All 4 age classes are represented here in terms of the appearance. The ones with 1s are first year, ones with 2s are second year because they have a bit of gray in the mantle coming in. You can see this one looking at you. Number 3 look mostly like an adult, but they're more extensive brown on them still, and the rest are adults. And the last one is the lesser black-backed gull here. Large gull tends to look shorter than a herring gull, yellow legs. And you should expect to find, 1 or 2, I'm sure, along the Niagara if you're looking for them intently. I'd like to just acknowledge the photographers who provided photos in addition to my own, Ryan Griffiths, Natalie Robertson, Andrew McTavish, and Jamie Spence. And I'll show you these books again. Identify Yourself by Bill Thompson III, and The Complete Birder by Jack Connor. These are books to get. And if you'd like to learn more about gulls, if you just Google the Ontario Field Ornithologists and look up Gull Watching Guide, you'll find OFO has quite an extensive article here on gull watching by Ron Pittaway here. And this is a lot of information here on the gulls you can expect along the Niagara River, and in Ontario, I should say, and along the Niagara River. There's a little blurb on Niagara River, and I'm sure, as I said, Tom Kerr will be talking more extensively about gulls in his presentation on Sunday the 14th. And I encourage you also to check out North American Gulls, a Facebook group that is devoted to gulls, where you can just get a taste of the complexity and nuance in gull identification. So I would encourage you moving forward. I certainly hope you did decently well in the quiz. And if you found you had perhaps a lower score, everyone's a winner. The point is really to just get out there and look. And the more you look, the more you see. And I promise you there are gulls to look at as close as your local fast food joint. Let the ring-billed gull be your conduit into the world of gulls, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. And I'd like to thank you very much for your attention, and happy gulling.
Thank you, Justin. Hopefully everybody has the opportunity and privilege to bird with Justin in person at one of the OFO field trips, or perhaps at the Birds on that Niagara Festival next year. There's lots to learn, there's lots to see, and as Justin says, just watch. So thanks so much, Justin, for your time and expertise.
Thank you.